Welcome back. How you been?
Oh man, great, great. Had to take a quick trip down south back to the motherland down there in Oklahoma and come back up and feeling good, ready for tonight and excited for tonight. So how about yourself?
I'm good, man. Tonight's a big one. We had a couple. We missed you. The first two, I had a chance to talk to our buddy Raheem from the Globetrotters, and
Yeah.
then Cody from Saint Asania stopped by in Art of Dying. Awesome dude. Love him. We've got one of the, in my opinion, one of the greatest piano players in the game slash guitarist right now, which we'll get to in a
Yeah.
minute. But I've got some facts for you, man. Speaking of
Yeah.
tickling the ivories, I looked that up because I've heard that expression my whole life, tickling the ivories, right? For
Yeah.
piano. I wanted to find out where that came from. So I got three piano facts for you, Dane.
All right, here we
First,
go.
first off, for what we know, the modern piano, modern, was invented in 1706
Mm.
in Italy. Did you know it was in that? That's a couple years after you were born, right? I'm just kidding. And it was in Italy. And this is a little bit disturbing, but it's a fact. So you know the internet never lies. The first actual piano, the first piano player actually had real ivory as the actual ivory. It's kind of crazy, you know.
Hmm.
So
Nice.
I didn't know that, man. But yeah, so I can imagine that. Thank goodness they stopped doing that and they replicated it with something else. But back in the day, it was real ivory. It's also one of the instruments that this amazing artist plays alongside of guitar. So I don't want to waste any time, Dane. This guy's awesome. He's been working with Daughtry, a great
Yeah.
guitarist and great piano player. So I'm going to get into it and bring on our buddy Elvio. Elvio, how you doing, my friend?
Doing well. How are you?
Good, man. Good.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for joining us. Pleasure to
Yeah,
have you.
man. How's the road
Hey,
treating you so far?
very good. We're having a ton of fun. It's the bare bones tour, so it's basically everything we imagined stripped down to acoustic instruments, and we're playing songs we haven't played in a long time, some covers, and just every night it's a lot of just ebbing and flowing, and it's a lot of fun. It's very different than the electric show, but still, like I said, a lot of fun nonetheless.
I,
So
I love it,
enjoying it.
man. Well, thank you, man, for taking time out of your
Yeah,
schedule. I know you're busy,
definitely.
man. We've got some questions we're gonna run past you. I'm gonna go first. Obviously, between being a great guitarist and a pianist, and among many other things, I heard you
Yeah.
also play the banjo. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Take me back. Take me back to when it began, man. When did you first start playing music in your life? How old were you, and when did you get that itch to play? You know.
Um, Ever since as early as I can remember. So my grandfather was an incredible Portuguese guitar player. My entire family came over from a small island off the coast of Portugal called
Mm.
Madeira Island, and my grandfather would play this. The style of music is called fado, Fado, and it's beautiful. It's like Portuguese blues folk. It's very like minor chords, very heart wrenching, and my mom would sing, and my mom would write these songs, and those were my earliest memories as a musician. And my aunt, when I was like I think 3 years old, she bought like a toy piano, and my parents quickly found out that I had an ear for music,
Mm.
because like the radio would be playing and these songs would become familiar to me and I would start playing along, and they were like, wait a minute, how is he doing that? So I play completely by ear, and that's what
Cool.
has guided me my entire career is my ear. Now, I know music knowledge and theory and chords because I've been doing it so long. So when somebody says, for example, play a G major, that sounds like that makes sense. So just doing it for a long time, I've picked up some knowledge along the way. But yeah, as early as I can remember, I was playing piano and just messing around with whatever instruments were in the house. So
I love that.
about
You
it.
know,
Wow.
Dane and I talk a lot about this, and he got tired of it because he's got a few years older than me. But my first guitar, man, I remember this Roadstar. I got it. My dad. I was 12. It was my first purple Roadstar. Do you remember? Obviously, that's great. The early memories when you first got your real first piano or first guitar. What kind was it? How old were you when you got your first real gear? You know?
Yeah, my first real gear, it was probably a keyboard, and I want to say for real keyboard, pro keyboard was a Curl, the name of the keyboard, K2000. I don't remember how much
Okay.
it was at the time, but it was a pro keyboard. It had every strings and synths and all different instruments, and that uh, that was the beat. I think I was maybe 14, 15 when I got like a real keyboard. I mean, my parents would buy me keyboards, but it was one of those like Casios, like where it would play drums and bass
Costco
and do all
ones.
the
Costco.
yeah, exactly. I maximized what I could do with that and graduated. Yeah. So
I get you. Go ahead, Danny.
Oh, I was going to say, other than with your family and, kind of having them show you the ropes of music, can you remember the first band you kind of struck out on your own with, whether it be with friends or classmates or things like that? And what was the type of music you played, and maybe the band's name?
So the very, very, very first band I was ever in, I was still in college, and throughout high school, nobody really knew that I was a musician. It was different back then. I was a jock in high school. I played soccer, baseball, basketball, and being a musician wasn't cool. I kind of fact that I did it, and then I remember we were at a party my senior year. Somebody threw a party and there was an upright piano in the house, and we may or may not have had some drinks. And then I went over to the piano and just kind of played a couple notes, and a bunch of dudes were like, "You don't play that, do you?" And I was like, "Name a song." Name a song, and then I became stumped. I just started playing all this. Couldn't believe it, but college. It was a cover band in Rochester. It was a band called East Coast Connection. It was a party/wedding/bar band, all covers. I was the youngest in the band by probably 20 years. And I learned so much in that band because, at the time I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now, but they were great musicians, and they played like anything from Motown to Elton John and Billy Joel to Chicago to whatever, like Journey. Like it was a huge variety of covers with the goal being we're going to entertain whatever bar or wedding we're at. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like the songs that please everybody. So, playing that kind of stuff for a few years, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about different styles. You learn a lot about, what you gravitate towards. And to this day, I incorporate a lot of that stuff into my playing now, so it was my first band. They were called East Coast Connection. I think I was 19 or 20 when I joined that band. And hope that answered your question.
It's time for a reunion tour. They need a reunion tour, right, Dan? Let's get them back. Get the boys back together.
Get the East Coast back together. Now, from that point on, you started learning your craft, and I'm sure getting influences from other people that are around you. Going back from that point to now with what you're doing, do you have maybe a favorite event or a favorite gig that you've done through the years, or maybe it's more than one that you just never get tired of telling the story because it sits so well with you?
Yeah, there's a couple different things. So before I joined Daughtry, I had a band in upstate New York, in Rochester, New York. It was a band called Uncle Plum. I was the front man and actually didn't play much keyboard at all. I maybe played, I had a keyboard set up in front of me, kind of like the guy from the Killers. Yeah. But I played guitar probably 90% of the night, just rhythm guitar. We had an incredible lead guitarist. But we used to do these festivals in Rochester called the East End Festival, and there would be 5,000 people right in front of me. And some of those memories I'll never forget, like just feeling like you've got all those people in the palm of your hand, and feedback, and that a good response from an audience of that size when you're fronting a band it's a great feeling. So those were great. But as far as Daughtry, my favorite gig, it's probably and it happened not long ago, but we sold out and headlined Royal Albert Hall in London.
That's cool.
And that was bucket list. It was incredible. Lizzie Hale came out and did Separate Ways with us. Yeah. And just being in that venue and just looking around and remembering what it looked like from videos of seeing like Zeppelin and Captain and all these people. Such an iconic place, and it was probably my favorite gig. Band played great. It was one of those nights where we just felt we were on fire, and to do that in an iconic venue like that, it's probably my favorite gig that we.
I'm reminiscing, man, because I didn't want to with Uncle Plum, I'm hoping there's some stuff. Like I said, you got so many things on the side, man. You have so many irons in the fire, right? And I from my mind keeps going back to you at 3, almost with the Step Brothers thing with the Casio keyboard, man, just getting it. So I'm hoping I'm hoping we'll see some more.
Bro,
of your,
my first instrument was an accordion. I think that was the first. Like there was an accordion in the house. I was like, there's nothing cool about an accordion.
You're gonna have to down the road, man. We'll get into that. Maybe get some of the boys back together for some reunion stuff. I'm curious though, man, because you have such a plethora. I got that word right, Dan. Plethora of music in your background. And you think about the influences, man, from your family and your heritage and the artists you play with, man. Everybody has that muse, right? Like obviously you can't say one or two, maybe narrow it down, but maybe your style of playing piano. Is there one or two artists that like stand out to you as maybe you try to emulate, or that's just been your muse so far in your career? If you could say that.
Yeah. I would definitely say Billy Joel and Elton John. When I was in my teens, I went to a Billy Joel concert for the first time, and that moment changed my life in a way that I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And it was bittersweet in a way because, you know, watching him and seeing that and wanting that so badly for myself someday, it just seems so far out of reach. You know what I mean? So it's almost like I enjoyed it, but I almost left depressed because I'm like, oh man, that'll never happen, but I want that so badly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that I would say Billy Joel and Elton John for sure. And just, I mean, I grew up in the 80s. So just listening to pop and rock radio in the 80s.
Anybody?
I mean, my first album that I ever bought was Synchronicity from Police, then Thriller, 1984 from Van Halen. So learning like Jump, you know, all those synth songs, like I love that stuff. And I was a pop music kid in rock, you know, as far as you know, bands like Van Halen and Guns N' Roses and all the, you know, the 80s rock bands.
Yeah, the staples.
It wasn't until college that I kind of went backwards and dug deep into like, you know, the Beatles and some of the classic, you know, Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and things like that. Older Van Halen, you know. Mm-hmm. I started to do a little more research in college and, you know, listening to what my friends were listening to. And then the Seattle scene hit when I was in college. Nirvana came out and Pearl Jam and all that stuff. So that was a whole nother thing, you know. Mm-hmm. But
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm making notes. Like I do this. No, you're spot on, man. I do it every time I make notes, and I'm just like, man, the knowledge of what you're spewing is like, you're gonna forget more than I'm ever gonna remember. So I'm writing this stuff down, man. So I love it. So then go ahead. Yeah. That's just fantastic.
So now that you're, you know, kind of a staple in Daughtry there, what do you see coming up for you, you know, in this wrapping up the year as we, you know, start getting into the last quarter of the year? What's on the horizon for you the next 3, 4 months, 6 months as an artist? What are you got a goal set for that?
I mean, you know, goals and things like that. I mean, Chris drives the ship, you know, and, you know, we follow his lead, but, you know, we're going to finish this tour, which I believe ends in the beginning of October, and then continue working on the album. We just released a single that we're all very excited about, a song called Artificial.
So good. It's so good, man. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really, you know, stoked and happy. The video's great. Like the response has been awesome. We're really stoked. So, you know, we're hoping that continues to do well, and then just, you know, leads us into finishing the record and going from there.
Oh wow.
So Dane, also, and Elvio, one of the things, man, we want to dive into is, and I understand if not, the timing kind of going beyond that, man, but what, you know, you've got that school that you've been a part of, and are you looking at maybe bringing back some side stuff? I love what you're doing with Chris. That's great. But you got any side projects that you're working on, or more content from just you that's going to be out there?
Yeah.
You know, most of my spare time when I'm not on the road with Daughtry or in the studio or any of that is spent on my academy, Rockstar Academy.
Yeah.
That's very close to my heart. That is the most important thing I do, to be honest with you, because it's so many kids that are impacted, and these are kids that need to feel like rock stars. And, you know, we live in a society where how many likes you get and social media is now the barometer of whether or not you're cool. That's not reality. Reality is, you know, expressing yourself. These creative kids that don't have an outlet, You get them up on stage, they play in front of people cheer and go nuts. That's life-changing for these kids, you know? So our focus is growing that. And, you know, we have bands from my academy that are doing really well. I was actually showing the guys today a video of the very, very first band I formed at the academy. They're now out playing in front of 300-400 kids, making great money. And like, this is what they do now. And they're in their early 20s. It's great, you know? So, but as far as like side projects for me, you know, I have a writing partner in Rochester, Johnny Cummings, who he and I co-wrote Heavy as the Crown and Asylum. We also write for other artists and produce other artists as well. So, you know, I stay creative, but my focus is obviously contributing to the next Daughtry album. So,
and to me, that's what, you know, kind of, whenever Josh told me about you, I started looking up things, and that's what really kind of resonated with me was your academy, because we started our podcast here to kind of inspire that next generation to be the next athlete, to be the next great musician. And with something that you do, that's what kind of touched me whenever I started reading about you and kind of looking at some of the results from your week-long academies, when these kids go out, you know, playing with kids their own caliber. And when they go out and play, I mean, they just, do you see a lot of them just kind of break out of their shell during that week of having them, to where they get on stage and they're just all out?
Every single time. When they show up on Monday, I'm always like, I don't think they're going to be able to pull off 2 songs by Friday. And they always come through. They always pull through. And it's an incredible thing to watch over a week's time, you know? And then they get the bug. And I started that as a 1-week summer camp. Then it turned into a 2-week summer camp. And then the feedback that I would get from the kids was, we don't want to wait a whole nother year to do this again. Like, this is our favorite time of the year. So I said, why don't I just model this after travel sports? And we form bands. A band gets a coach. You practice every week. And then the games are the gigs. I book gigs, and that's what we do. Now it's a year-long thing. And it's great. I've seen, you know, kids come in at 12, 13 years old that barely know how to do anything, that are now in working bands out there making money, doing great. You know? And yeah, but it's all about confidence, you know, like just like sports, like who's going to go pro, really? You know what I mean? The likelihood of somebody going pro is small. Same thing in music. Like the goal is not to get these kids record deals and make them famous. The goal is, you know, if your kid comes to my academy and leaves with this much more confidence than he or she came with, we win, right? Like that's really what it's all about, you know? But it's a lot of fun.
And that's Elvio, as Dane and I were talking, man, when I first hit you up, I said, this is what you do with that. Again, great pianist, love what you do with the side product, love Daughtry, but what you do with these kids, because we do camps all the time with our athletes, and you're taking that model of sports, and you took what you learned from college and high school, and now you're modeling music after that, and you're helping kids that may not have a shot. That's the most rock star thing you could ever do, bro. And it's so fantastic that you do that. That's why we love you. On top of the other things, that's why we love you and wanted you on so much. So thank you for giving back to the next generation.
Definitely.
Yeah, man. So with that being said, we are going to transition, man. I'm tearing up, Dan. I got
I love it. Love it.
Because it's so cool. There's a segment, Elvio, I bet you money. Well, I bet Dane money. There's a segment that you've never done. I promise, in all your interviews you've done, we got a segment for that you've never had before. Okay, it's called Rapid Fire. Now, Elvio, what this is man, it's PG, but the fans give us some weird stuff. I love our fans because they get weird, so we're gonna get weird for a minute, okay? So we're gonna ask you some questions. You got to pick one of the two. Time doesn't exist. Reality's not a thing. You just got to roll with it, and you got to spit it out. The answer. You got to pick one of the two. Okay.
Sounds good.
So Dane, you got your picks. You ready, man?
Yep, I'm ready.
So first one, we're going back. So you're transplanted, Elvio. You're transplanted back into the 80s, and you're asked to do the lead part. You're taking over for a night for Angus. You got to play Thunderstruck in front of a sold-out crowd, right? But what they don't tell you is you're playing Thunderstruck with the band, but you don't get to ride around the stadium like in a machine. You have to ride around playing Thunderstruck on the back of a moving bull, like a bull rider, or you got to be on the back of a moped. So you're playing Thunderstruck, and you're rolling around the stadium on a bull or a moped, getting it. Which one are you going with?
I'm going with the bull. That's rock star. Like, if I can even sit on that thing for more than, those guys get like 5-6 seconds and they're bucked off. Yeah. So I'm predicting I get about 3-4 seconds. You might get I'm off. That's it. So,
I love it, Dane. Did you have that one?
Oh yeah. Or you might just tame the bull. Just those chords once they hit. Yeah, once those chords hit, you might just tame the bull there.
If you need any show ideas, man, just bring in a bull for you, man.
put a hat on me.
There you go.
I love it.
Put a hat on me, and I will look like a bull rider.
Let's go, man. Question 2. So, Billy, one of your muses, both Billy and Elton, show up. They say, "Hey, we want to play a song with you. We want to play one of your songs that you've created with Daughtry." So you, Billy Joel, and Elton sit down, and you're going to do a live performance. It's either Heavy as a Crown, make it just piano-ish, or Home, and it's you three. You're singing the vocals. You kick Chris off the stage. So you're singing. Billy and Elton play. Are you going with Heavy as a Crown or Home? They're playing it for you. Which one?
That's an easy one. Heavy as a Crown for me.
Let's go. I knew it, Dane. I actually cheated, Dane, because I knew you wrote that. So, Dane, did you have that one?
And by the way, Home is an incredible song, and the fact that Chris wrote that by himself is like, I mean, he's such an incredible writer. But obviously, Heavy as a Crown is dear to me because I had a hand in writing that song, and my first tattoo, bro. Come on, now that's the crown.
All right.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Nice.
No, and like I said, we love Chris. We're just saying, like, this is for that part of it. You're taking the stage. You get it. So next one, man. So you're called up. You are called up to do a celebrity hula hoop judging contest. You show up at a gig, say, "Hey, we need to borrow you for 30 minutes. ESPN's covering a hula hoop event, and you're doing like the Pac-12 is having to get together, and you're doing the judging. You get to pick one of your other judges to help you, though. Okay, so you're doing the hula hoop judging contest, and you get to commentate. Your two choices for your co-host is either A, Simon Cowell, or B, Judge Judy as your co-host. Which one are you going with?
Simon Cowell all day.
Oh yeah.
Let's go.
Oh,
Killing it, Dane. How about you? Let's go. Dane, what about you?
Yeah, it's Simon. Oh yeah.
We
can't go wrong with that guy.
We're tied right now, Dane. So I got to find a way to get past you on this one. Okay. So next one, you're a child of the 80s. You told me that, and because I know a little bit about you. So they call you up and say, "Hey, Elvio, we want you to, as the rock star that you are, you're going to take the lead role, and instead of John Stamos, you get to fill in as either being Jesse in Full House, or B, you get to be the lead character in Three's Company. You get to play it. Which one are you going with? Full House or Three's Company?"
Full House or Three's Company. Well, it's funny because some of the fans think they're funny, and they actually there's a few of them who call me John Stamos. And here's another funny fact. The very first TV performance that I did with Daughtry, we were playing live on American Idol, and Zach from Shinedown, guitar player, sent a message. He posted something on our post about it or whatever, and he said, "I didn't know Daughtry got John Stamos as their keyboard player." So with that, I'm going to go with John Stamos.
Let's go, Dane. How about you? Did you have that one, man?
I had Three's Company. It'd be hard to turn away from Suzanne Summers there.
You know what? Look, I'd have been happy with the other one as well. Seriously, a guy living with it's not bad. It's not a bad deal.
I love it, man. So final question. This is the final rapid question. So you're called up to be a part of this. An interesting fact I didn't tell you about Dane is hip hop started as we know it, really kicked off in the 70s. So you get to be a part of producing for one of these two iconic bands. Elvio, you get to say that you helped produce the album, because I know you do some production work. You can either be responsible for A, helping the debut album for Kool and the Gang, or B, the debut album for Run DMC. Which one you go with?
Run DMC.
Let's
They
go.
were so cool and innovative. I'm going Run DMC.
Let's go, Dane. Did you have that, Dane?
No, I had Kool in the Gang, man.
There you go. All right, so I will take my lobster bisque.
Dane hates me right now.
So I love you, man, even more. I'm winning. So
Yeah.
Dane, send my food. And
Yeah, that just adds to the lunch pile that I already owe him.
let's go.
So.
Awesome, man.
Let's not sleep on the great songs that Kool and the Gang had.
Oh yeah. And we always say we do those, man, because everything we do, it's both great. We just, kind of pick a personality a little bit, the 1A, 1B stuff. So I love it. Hopefully in interviews past, you haven't had a segment like that. So thanks for being a good sport, man.
No, that was very creative. That was fun.
Thank you, man. So Dan, I'll give you back the last segment, man. Go ahead.
Elvio, this last segment, we call it an open mic. We kind of open up the floor to our guests to maybe tell maybe a philosophy or a mantra they've kind of carried that, in your case, you work with a lot of young musicians, is there something that you kind of pass on to them that you've learned throughout your career to kind of help them along their way to their journey to reach the heights that you've reached? And maybe can you share some of those with some of our younger viewers as well?
For sure, for sure. First of all, there's a couple things that I try to live by. One is I really feel like if you can be a positive influence in the life of a child, that's the greatest gift, honestly. Kids need people to look up to and to guide them. And we see it every day. Like, you see a kid transform from a shy kid who goes in his bedroom and plays guitar and never, ever felt that feeling of being a rock star. And then next thing you know, they're on stage playing a guitar solo in front of 200 people and everybody's cheering. Like, that transformation and what that does is really important to me, So I try to live by that. But as far as advice to give our students or young musicians, yes, the advice is this, because I get this question a lot. What do I need to do to get to your level, or to get signed, or to do music for a living, to be a professional musician? And I say that, the issue is a lot of people are enamored with the idea of being a famous musician and the idea of getting signed and all that stuff. But until you fall in love with the grind that it takes, it won't happen. Like, it's not going to happen if you don't love that grind. I love the grind. I loved playing in clubs. I love being in the studio more than anything and creating. The grind is literally what keeps me going. Like, I enjoy that part of it. And then the result, that's all a byproduct of the grind, right? Like, if you put yourself in that position and you manifest it and you see yourself on stage, or you see yourself doing whatever it is you dream about doing, you keep that. If you put that energy out there, the next thing you know is you find yourself in that exact situation. But you have to love the grind. It's not just going to happen. You're going to meet people. Wow. You're going to meet people. There's new relationships. Doors are going to open. Like, all of those things will lead you to your final destination, but you can't ignore those signs from the universe, right? Me getting to Daughtry, there was a lot of steps that led to that point. I was, thankfully I was aware and took those opportunities and didn't, ignore the universe when it was giving me signs. You know what I mean? So
yeah, man. Oh yeah, man.
Not to get too deep, but you got to see yourself doing it.
It's falling. It's a passion. Daniel and I talk about this, Elvio, all the time, and I guarantee, man, somewhere along the way, you're also going to be a coach, man. I know Scott Sapp coaches a baseball team. You're gonna have to coach somewhere along the way too, because I hear the coaching you coming back from your playing days, man. I hear it, But we talk a lot about. It's funny because you say that, and I was talking to Cody from Art of Dying and Say to Sonia, and it's interesting. Musicians like you have it in your blood. Like, you love the hall, the passion, the 3 a.m. drives, like the packing your gear, the studio long hours. It's like when athletes, we tell them you got to practice 20 hours a week to play a 1 hour game. You're on stage for 60 minutes a night, but you're grinding 10 hours a day doing press, doing, in the studio work, all that. That's like you're saying, like, that's the prep, and Dane, how do you expand on that? Because that's exactly what we tell our athletes too,
Yeah. The thing I come back to is, like, Josh and I talk about how, sports and music kind of mimic each other. You have to have that discipline, and you kind of put it there yourself, Elvio, with you set it up like sports whenever you do your academy, and it takes that same dedication, like you guys both said. You practice for 100 hours to prepare for one, to limit the mistakes, to get everything just perfect for an hour or an hour and a half, whatever it is, worth of work. So those things mirror each other, and that's the kind of thing I was thinking about when you were talking. And it's a good message to have for these younger kids that aspire to grow up to be like you.
Wow,
so it's a great message.
But I think the last thing too that I'll just leave you with this in regards to the advice that I give the kids. At this level, people don't realize that it's so important to be a good hang. You're living like we live together out here. We're on stage for an hour and a half. The rest of the day and night, you basically live together, oftentimes in a small bus. It's not a small bus, but you know what I mean? It's close quarters, right? Yeah. So being it's not necessarily about being the best player. I mean, obviously you need to know how to play, but if you're a crappy human being, you're not easy to get along with, or you're just, negative all the time or whatever, it's very,
Yeah.
It's very difficult to be around people like that, right? So
Man.
it's always a good hang, and it's not always easy because we see each other at our best and worst, and we're out here while our families are home. People are going through things. I don't always have a great day,
Yeah.
People, it's learning how to exist on the road. That's really
Yeah.
important. It doesn't matter if you're a virtuoso. You got to be a good hang in a
Mhm.
good family, basically. So.
It you are spot on, Elvio and Dane, how it mimics sports and music mimic each other, the discipline, man. So man, I can't say enough, Elvio, especially
Yeah.
knowing how busy you are. You taking time to do this, man,
Yeah.
is a pleasure.
My pleasure.
We always say alum, so once you get some time down the road after maybe the album comes out, you're welcome to come back, man. We'll
Yeah.
definitely want to stay in
Love
touch,
it.
and we'll get that out as soon as we can. And just thank you for being awesome, man, and even being cooler than the legend. You're
Yeah.
a notch above the reputation, man. So I appreciate
Yeah.
that. And,
Definitely.
You guys are too kind. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. It was
Yeah.
fun.
of
Yeah.
course, man.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch, and you take care. And thanks for the words of wisdom. Okay, much love, brother.
Take care,
Thank
fellas.
you.
That was awesome. Dan, I'm telling you, that dude's cool. I love his entire body of work and his work ethic and his mindset. What do you think, Dane? Crazy,
Yeah.
huh?
I love it. I love it. I mean, you can't say enough, and there's not a big enough applause to, fit what he's doing for the next generation. And
Mm.
on top of being what he does on stage and behind the scenes, whenever they are willing to pass that on to the next generation, you can't do anything but stand up and applaud that. So I
Commendable.
love reading the story about it. And I was watching some of the kids that, play on stage. And I mean, you would think after that short of time, or that whenever they play after that short of time, you look at them on stage, it's like, these kids have been playing for years. But once they
Yeah.
break out of that shell, it's just something ignites in them, and they're on their way. So, and
It's
he's
so
the catalyst for that. I mean, it's to be applauded. So I love
it,
having him on.
it's like a coach of music, like you said. There's no other way to put it. You're coaching
Yeah.
kids, and that's exactly we go back to why do we start doing this? Positive
Yeah.
message. I don't think I've ever talked to, and all of our guests have been great. We love all of you. That's probably the most positive guy I've ever talked to on
Yeah.
the show. Just leaves you I want to go play guitar again, man. Like I want to go write a song, and I do that on the side, but like that's just so
Yeah.
empowering the way he does his body of work and the grind. Everybody talks about
Yeah.
that. Like, hey,
Yeah.
you're going to play a 60-minute game or a 60-minute show, but you're going to
Yeah.
have to put in 20 hours of off the field or off the stage work and be okay with that and love it. And kids
Yeah.
don't think that's how it is. They see someone like him or even some of the other bands we've interviewed and worked with. They see the limelight, the spotlight, or they see
Yeah.
the athlete that makes the one play for 15 seconds on TikTok. How many
Yeah.
hours did it take to get there in the daily grind
Yeah.
every day? Man?
Yeah.
So
It
that's just
kind of it reminds me of when we were talking to Coach Gajewski. What he said. He said, "I want people here in my program that enjoy the work to get to where the games are. I mean, it's easy to go out there on game day and play, but I want to see what you do in those 20 hours building up." So it's a great
That's
message
awesome.
to hear. I mean, music and sports, they mirror each other so well.
Every time. And also Dango from Scott Stapp and Amber Pacific. Remember he said that too? He said, hey, don't be that guy on the road that nobody wants to hang with. It's
Yeah.
almost like it was the same. It's so crazy. Two people that may not even know each other. Maybe they do, but the philosophy about being great
Yeah.
musicians
Yeah.
is the same. Hey, be kind to
Yeah.
others, take care of others, pay it forward. On
Yeah.
and on, man. So wow, that was cool.
Yeah.
Well, Dane, that was
Yeah.
a great one. So that'll be our nightcap. Zell sends his love. He had to reschedule. Zell, producer,
Yeah.
known working with artists like Quavo and so on, sends his love. Then we have Coach BC. Speaking of giving back to the next generation, Coach BC Collins, a local Oklahoman, tomorrow night's coming on. Can't wait for that.
Yeah.
Tuesday, we've got a legendary drummer, Johnny Radalat. If y'all know any blues, y'all know about my buddy Johnny coming on Tuesday. Wednesday, Dan, we've got two epic ones. Thursday, we've got Josiah stopping by, a great guitarist from Disciple, along with Joey from Amberlin. And that'll take us into next week, which we got many, many more to come, man.
Yeah.
So kicking off next Sunday is Morgan from Oregon. We talked about Morgan stopping by.
Yeah.
Finally got that picture coming on. So lots of sports, lots of music, and many more episodes to come.
Yeah.
But thank you again, Elvio. That was a great way to end the night and very inspirational and very positive. So don't forget, as always, that we love you. And Dane?
Thank you for listening.